when I lean into it, I don't always get what I want, but you might. And at least you can feel good about yourself that you went for it. And I want you to have that feeling in life.
What's up, everybody? It's Rebecca Louise, and welcome back to this week's episode of It Takes Grit. My goodness, you guys are in for a treat today. David Wood, former consulting actuary to Fortune 100's turned coach and motivational speaker, is in the house today. We are talking all things doubling your revenue in less time, being courageous, how to be 30% more courageous and double your revenue for more happiness. So David, we've just been chatting and I'm just ready to ask a million questions. But first of all, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Rebecca. I'm really enjoying your energy. It's giving me a lift for the day. Who needs coffee? And I love the topic of your show. It takes grit, because in my experience, it truly does.
Fantastic. Awesome. So let's get started with your story. Who are you? I mean, I was looking you up and you're like #1 search for life coach online on Google. I mean, you've done some incredible things, but obviously it didn't just get started as being #1 ranked on Google. What was your starting? Where were you at? And how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, sure. And by the way, I'm no longer ranked #1. It's pretty hard to stay up there, but for a year or two, I had it pretty good. I grew up in a country town in Australia, and I was very left-brained and didn't know it. And I had a tragedy when I was young. My little sister was killed, and I was there, and I saw it happen. And we didn't know about therapy back then and taking the kid to the funeral. They just wanted to insulate me from everything. So without knowing it, I became very cerebral and very left-brained. I ended up topping my school, so I guess you might call that a silver lining. And then I got a scholarship to go to university. I got paid to go to college, which was an incredible privilege. And then I traveled the world for a year, and I couldn't afford to keep doing that. I needed to have a job. And I said, can I get a job in New York or somewhere so that I can live in another culture and get paid? Managed to manifest a job on Park Avenue, consulting to Sony Music and Ford and Exxon. I figured at the age of 24, I had it made. What I didn't know until someone recommended I do a personal growth program, and I managed to get past the name tags and the fact that they smiled way too much. I'm like, all right, let me get in and get out, but I'm not going to be one of those self-help junkies. Well, famous last words, Rebecca. They cracked my heart open. And I was a tough nut to crack, because I know everything, and I was very arrogant, still am quite arrogant if I'm honest. And I'm like, I know better than everyone else, and they're just out to get my money. No, they cracked my cynicism, they cracked my heart open. And I went on and did the next program. Then they said, if you do the next one, we'll train you as a coach. And I found myself coaching people by accident in the program, and I changed a woman's life overnight. Helped her screw up her courage and go and risk her marriage to tell her partner the truth and confess to an affair she had 10 years earlier. And I watched her do this and transform their relationship into total love. And I'm like, I'm hooked. How do I get more of this? So I quit my job on Park Avenue, went back to Australia, had a bit of a side hustle as an entertainer, because I always thought, if I had 6 months to do what I want in life, could do anything, what would I do? Now, I always wanted to be one of those guys at the ski fields who'd sing Piano Man, or they'd put on a black afro and sing Blame It on the Boogie, and they get everybody singing and dancing. I'm like, I want to do that. So talk about grit. That was horrendously scary. And I went and did it. And in fact, in the first couple of months, I auditioned for the Gong Show in Australia and was successful. And they flew me to Melbourne to sing in a kilt and play guitar on national television. And I don't have a good singing voice, I'll be honest with you. I just wanted to entertain. And one of the scariest things I did, I literally just a little bit peed my pants in the green room before I went on. That's how scared I was. Now, if you're wearing a kilt and you're about to go on national television and now you're worried about peeing your pants, you think that makes you calmer or less calm? So anyway, I did that for a side hustle. And then I discovered that there was the people actually coaching for a living back in 1998. And I'm like, really? Could I change people's lives and their businesses and get paid for it? And so that was 20 something years ago. And I haven't looked back. I resigned from the Institute of Actuaries after 8 years of qualifying, and went into what I love. And I can't imagine doing anything else.
That's incredible. Congratulations, first of all, on all of your success. And just having, like, I feel like it's the gut, it's the balls, it's the grit to like go and really just pivot to doing something completely different. And so one thing that you talk about is like getting into the discomfort zone. We always talk about like step outside of our comfort zone, but I love this like flip saying, get into your discomfort zone. So what does that feel like to be, how do you know when you're in your discomfort zone? And I think that that's the biggest scary thing for someone starting something new, whether it's a side hustle, a little business, or something completely different. It's that scarcity, but being in that discomfort zone is actually something that's quite exciting.
Yeah. So how do you know when you're in the discomfort zone? And also, why would you want to go into that? I feel it in my body. I feel it as I feel the nerves. I feel maybe my belly gets tight and pinches a little bit. My heart goes a little faster. I had an experience 3 or 4 days ago where I actually had a panic attack. My landlord moved in downstairs below my apartment, and I've been nervous about that for a few months. And then he opened the adjoining door between his apartment and mine and just came in and said, "Oh, I'm just going to use the storage room here." And I was in disbelief. And I tried to set my boundaries and whatever. And he said, "I'm not asking you. I'm just telling you this is how it's going to be." I've had anxiety for 20 years and I'm still managing it. And went into my office and was in such a state of agitation. So there's an extreme version of how I know this is my discomfort zone. Um, it might feel more mild for you. It might be just thinking about calling a prospect who might be a good client and asking them if they want to work with you. That might generate a few nerves. If you imagine having a cold shower, a lot of people are doing that for all the health benefits. Scares me, and the idea of getting into Boulder Creek now during the winter with all the snow on the ground and ice on the creek, that really scares me. So what I'd say is find those places. You don't have to confront them. You don't have to. You don't have to quit your job and go cold turkey into something else. You don't have to go on a national gong show to promote your business. You don't have to confess to your partner that you had an affair 10 years ago or that you broke an agreement. You don't have to do any of these things, but I highly recommend getting a sheet of paper and just writing at the top of it, what would I do if I was fearless? What would I say to people and to whom? What would I do in my business? What would I do in my job? What would I ask for? I'm nervous right now. There's a friend of mine who, I kind of want to ask him if he'd be a co-signer for a housing loan because I could get the house that I want. His credit's amazing. I'm nervous, that's an edge for me. So just write down the things like, what would you do if you were fearless? You don't have to do all of them. You might circle 2 or 3 of the easier ones and go and do that as practice to get into that discomfort zone. Now, why would you do it? I find that when I don't do it, I feel like I'm playing small in life and I regret. I regret that I didn't go for it. If I do it, I don't always get what I want. When I reached out to the owner and said, "Would you be open to a cup of tea in the garden with me?" I couldn't sleep. That was edgy for me. And I may not have gotten what I wanted, but transformed my life because we had an open, honest conversation. I got to know him. I got to know how he built this house from scratch and fought tooth and nail to make it. and some of the challenges he faces in his life. And then I was absolutely vulnerable about, I am miserable. I'm looking for a hotel. Is there any way you'd be willing to give me 24 hours notice before you come in? He said, yeah, I could do that. I cried. So when I lean into it, I don't always get what I want, but you might. And at least you can feel good about yourself that you went for it. And I want you to have that feeling in life.
It's so true. It's having that, just going for it, no matter what could be completely scary on the other side. I appreciate you being so open and honest and vulnerable that you still suffer with anxiety. And there's still days where you're like, I'm scared. Because I feel like a lot of times we see people who are super successful. They've got their shit together. They're all in line. There's nothing that can get in their way. They know what to do. And it's like, I still get nervous. I still feel like that, but I want to do it anyway, because I'm more scared of not going after it and not getting it than the fear itself. So for those of you who are listening out there, and you guys know that sometimes when it is a little bit scary, it's scary for everybody. It's not just because it's happening to you. So I appreciate that you being open and honest there and being like, for 20 years, I've struggled with anxiety, and that's okay, but you've still done it anyway.
Exactly. I'm glad you said it. I want to pop the bubble. We see people as successful. People might say, oh, David, you sold $300,000 from the stage in 15 minutes. Oh my God, you've got everything worked out. Or Jack Canfield wrote the foreword to your book. That's amazing that you know him. Like, how do you hang out with Marianne Williamson, presidential candidate? Not recently, but I did ask her if she was single. Turns out it was complicated, but they look at that and just assume these people have got it all together. Maybe Joe Biden's got it all together. My God, no. I've been struggling. I had trauma as a kid, and sometimes my life is cruisy and easy and incredibly blessed and privileged. And in other ways, this weekend was miserable for me. I was like, how am I going to cope with what's happening in my body? I called the police. I said, what are my rights and can you assist here? They sent someone out and he said, yeah, maybe I can mediate something. And it helped. And look, I was once talking to John Gray, who wrote Mars and Venus. And he said something that blew me away. We were all sitting in his living room and he said, I really want to acknowledge you, because being an entrepreneur is hard. It's really hard. And I just want to acknowledge you. And we weren't students, we were peers sitting around. I'm like, this is John Gray, who sold more books than maybe the Bible. I haven't looked up the numbers, but I go through it often in my life, places I don't know if I can get through it sometimes. I've gone and done ayahuasca. Wow, not for the faint of heart, that plant medicine, 6 hours of suffering. Recently, there's an experimental program in Boulder where you do therapy sessions and they inject you with anesthetic. So you're not just there with all your faculties, you're like very in a vulnerable state and you see what your psyche wants to spit out. Not for the faint of heart. So it takes grit. That's the summary. It takes grit to live your life. And it takes grit for some people to just show up each day and to just work on their business or show up for their job or make money to put food on the table. And I have such respect for those people who just dig into their grit and they're like, all right, I don't feel comfortable. I might be scared. I might even be white knuckling it sometimes. And I'm still here. I'm here for myself and I'm going to go for it anyway.
So true. And one thing that you talk about is focus. And I think that there is so many different things that we can choose and that we get to do. We want to talk about the shiny object syndrome that you talk about, because I am that classic person that's like, ooh, this person's doing this. I need to do this now. Oh my goodness, this person's doing this. It's working over there for them. I need to start copying that. So One, how do we get focused in what we want? And how do we avoid not wanting to try and do everything and then we end up doing absolutely nothing?
Yeah. Well, acknowledging the issue is the first step. So just getting clear that our brains are pretty much like a monkey on crack. Brains like flitting about from thing to thing, and we don't help it with all the information overload and the entertainment and flashes of images. I imagine it's even harder for us to focus today than it was 200 years ago. So firstly, let's just get that. The brain's jumping around. Also, let's get up close and personal with the fact that we want entertainment. And it's fun, and it gives us motion to jump from thing to thing. And we have this idea that we're being crazy productive when we're not, but it's entertaining. Oh, let me just check my email and get a little bit of a dopamine hit. No, there's a message from my landlord. He wants something from me. And oh, I'm house hunting. So let me just go and check on Zillow. And oh, now I've got a coaching call. I've got 2 minutes to prep now for that. It's so easy to fall into that. And what it creates is stress. It creates entertainment. So I acknowledge that, but it creates stress. And we're not going to be as productive as we could be.
Mm-hmm.
So what if we tried something else? And what I'm a fan of is set your goals 12 months out. Just ask yourself, I used to really resist goal setting and I still do, but just ask yourself, what would have me do the happy dance? What would have me thrilled and wanting to tell all of my friends, I can't believe this happened. This was so great. This is really making a difference in my life. Write down 3 of those things. Now you may find that you've got 20 goals. Put the rest of them in the drawer. You can still have them on a list, but put 3 of them up on your wall. These are the clear things that would have me do the happy dance. If I achieve one of them, I can pull something out. That's the first way that we can create some focus in our life. The second way, because I find we need to layer our goals, because a year out doesn't mean anything. It's a beginning. It's a rough direction, but it doesn't relate to the day-to-day. So ask yourself, and by the way, I have a cheat sheet with all of these things on it to download. Happy to give it away to listeners at the end of this episode, so you don't have to write it all down. 3 months out, what would you need to have happen to know you're fully on track to doing the happy dance? You got 3 goals, 12 months out. Come up with 3 goals for 3 months out. Starts to make it more real. That's all we're doing. Then do the same thing for 7 days. All right. Given I want to do a million things and I know I can't, this is where the discipline comes in. Put your CEO hat on and say, all right, 7 days out, this is what I'm going to choose to care about. I'm going to do these 3 things, or these 6 things, or these 7 things. I want to do 20, but the rest go on another list. I get to pull out some of those once I've knocked off something on my list. Like I'm looking at I got my wall in front of me right now. I've got the 7-day list. That's my to-do list. Taxes, responding to all the requests for a coaching session that have just started flooding in as of 7 a.m. this morning, because a friend decided to just tell people they should work with me. House hunt. And I've got a program I'm coding myself because I'm a total nerd. And it's a program that shows relationships between podcast hosts, so I can, get more bookings on podcasts. So that's pretty much it. That's all that's allowed in the to-do column. I got 10 other things that want to make it. They're not allowed yet, because then it gets overwhelming and I'm just, jumping from one thing to another. Can't do it. Mm-hmm. And then the last layer is tomorrow. When you wake up tomorrow, what really matters? And I think it's great to set an alarm for 4 o'clock every day to ask yourself, what are the 2 things? If I only got to do 2 things tomorrow, what would they be? It's a great way to focus the mind. And then if you're really smart, you'll try and ignore every other stimulus and input until those 2 things are done. Now, these things may sound simple, Doesn't mean they're easy to do. It usually, when clients come and they join my program, usually takes a few months to have these things become habit, because you got a lifetime of doing something else. So, on the cheat sheet, you'll see there's booking sprints in your calendar. There's turning off distractions. There's all sorts of things we can do to hack your own brain so that you can slow down and focus on one thing at a time. And you get two benefits of that. One, you got a much better chance of achieving those happy dance goals. And secondly, you feel better at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, I nailed that. I've been putting that off for weeks. I nailed that. And I literally say out loud, David, you're a legend. You really got that done. Well done.
That's fantastic. And what you said in there, you said something about being overwhelmed, which is actually when I was going to segue into next. Because if you have this lined out, okay, what do I need to do? Like, what's time sensitive? Like, what's going to make the biggest difference to my life right now by doing these things and focusing on, like you said, just 2 things per day, you're not going to get overwhelmed. I hear that a lot from my audience. I feel overwhelmed. I feel overwhelmed. And so for you, when you feel overwhelmed, is it because you have got your list and there's too many things going on and you just need to like segment it and just focusing on those 2 things? So I just feel that I get that a lot. Like, oh my goodness, I just feel so overwhelmed. And if you streamline your goals and you find out what's the biggest thing in your life right now that if you changed it or if you worked on it would close the gap, the biggest gap that you have. I don't know what your experience is with feeling overwhelmed or how you felt that in the past, but what are some tactics that you use to not feel overwhelmed?
Well, I'll tell you one way that I see it happening. And I know, just noticing the pace at which you're speaking right now, that might be your natural pace. I know for me, when I get to that pace, I'm kind of ramped up. I'm excited. My breath starts to go up into my chest versus into my belly. And I'm generating stress in my body. I've been doing it for 52 years. And one of my aims now is to slow down with the number of things I'm trying to do, slow down the pace. A good friend of mine by the name of Ezra Firestone just shared something with me recently. He wrote it down from his meditation, and it said, speed is the enemy of pleasure. And I really like that. So just acknowledge that your brain wants to do all of these things and it wants it now. It wants it yesterday. Mine too. Have some discipline. Say, all right, these are the things that are most important. I'm going to do them one at a time. And then once one thing's done, I can pull something out of the drawer that wants to get on the list.
Mm-hmm.
So many things want my brain's attention, even now, while I'm talking to you. What about that? Did someone get back to me about that house that I want to see? My email's been swamped. I haven't even checked for that. Has anyone booked another session today? Because they're just flooding in. The brain wants to do these things. Acknowledge that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for trying to help. And now I'm going to come back to what I've decided matters. Now, something else will be really useful for listeners, Rebecca, is I believe we've got 2 big personalities inside us. One is the CEO, Chief Executive Officer, that can make those big decisions and make the tough calls. We're not going to do that. We're going to do this. Or we're going to do this, this, and this, and then we get to go and play with that. So there's a time to bring that out. And I think 4 o'clock the day before is a nice time. You can pick something else. Then there's a time to let that go and stop planning and stop second guessing and stop making the decisions. That's when the worker inside us shows up. All right, it's 9 o'clock. I got my coffee, my cup of herbal tea, whatever it is, been to the bathroom. I've done my stretches, whatever my morning routine is. And now I'm going to do what I agreed with my CEO that I would do yesterday. I'm going to review owner's equity and the taxes and send it to the bookkeeper. Mm-hmm. Boom. Set the timer. I like to do 25-minute sprints. 25 minutes. Can I do all of that job? No. All right, let's break it down. I'm going to review owner's equity and at least look at it. That's the first 25 minutes. Timer goes off. get up, stretch, maybe, minute of tug of war with the dog, pee, back, another 25 minutes. So I don't know, that was a long answer. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. And what was really important is we have all these things, right? We have these lists and things ready to go. Then we organize it and we're like, great, I know that I need to, for my business, reach out to 10 new people a day. I need to do this training. I need to be part of this. I need to sit down and do this. Now we're struggling because we don't have the courage to do it. So one of your things is, why should we be 30% more daring? And I know that a lot of my audience, they get to that point where they're not overwhelmed anymore. And now they've got everything in line. And now it's like having the balls, having the courage, and actually going for it. How do you get out of your own way so that you can be 30% more daring?
Yeah, a great metaphor for this is, if you go and do Tony Robbins or something like that, and you're going to walk over hot coals. I think it's a very powerful exercise, because whatever you need to do to get yourself to do that, you can draw on that for something else, which might be a tough conversation. It might be bungee jumping, it might be reaching out to the landlord and asking if we can have a chat. It might be making a confession. Hey, I screwed up. I'm the one who did it. I once did something as a teenager that was illegal. And later in life, I just felt really bad about it. And I'm like, what am I going to do? And I chose to track down the person and reach out and say, I want to confess that was me, and I'm really sorry. How can I make it right? I could have done jail time. Now, that's an extreme example. Doing a national gong show in a kilt when you're scared you're going to pee yourself. Those were my big edges. But I want to talk also about the smaller edges, like, hey, wife or husband, there's something I'm interested in trying in the bedroom. What do you think? You want to give it a whirl or no? Or there's something I don't really want to keep doing in the bedroom, right? These things can be scary. So again, I think it's great to, get a piece of paper, write down at the top of it, what would I do if I was fearless? Mm-hmm. What would that look like? What would I do? You don't have to do it all, but let's just find our edges. I remember calling Jack Canfield's office and asking to be put through to him. Must have done it multiple times, because often he's not around or his receptionist doesn't pick up. We get a voicemail. I'm like, oh, I don't want to hound them. Multiple times. One day, and then sometimes I'd wait a couple of weeks before I had the courage again to do it. One day I called and she's like, oh, actually, he just got off the phone. I think he's free. Let me check. Then Jack's on the phone, Jack Canfield from Chicken Soup. And I'm asking him if he would come and speak at my live event for free. Scary conversation, man. But I just figured if you don't ask, then you're starting with a no. That's your default. I've already got a no. Let's see what happens. And then by a miracle, we found a way, and he's very generous. He's been very generous to me and very kind. I think I'd give him my firstborn child if he asked. He came and showed up and was the headliner for my first and only live event that I've run. So I really encourage you, find where your edges are. Don't go over your edge. And I think that'd be worth talking about too. I've gone past my edge and I've traumatized myself. So you got to find where your edge is. And when you're feeling resourced enough, be willing to feel that flutter in the heart and to go for it. You might even stay really nervous to do this, really nervous to have this conversation. I'm decided to go for it. Heard this guy, David Wood, on a podcast, said, you're already starting with a no, so I thought I'd ask.
That line's going to really relate to my audience. Like, if you haven't even asked, it's already a no, because my audience and myself too, we get worried about rejection and people saying no, but you've got a no already. You might get a maybe. You might even get a maybe, and you might even get a yes. So I think that's such a really important thing just to think about, is that if you haven't even asked somebody what it is that you need, or this new client, if they want to get started on a program with you, whatever it is, it's already a no. To wrap us up, David, what is one of your most favorite stories from someone that you've helped transform their lives? Like, what's the thing that comes to mind or to heart?
Well, don't know. I don't know if this is a favorite story, but it's a very powerful one. Um, I coached a man by the name of Bradley Long. And one of the reasons I really enjoyed working with him was he was already successful. He came to me successful. I think his revenue was maybe $60,000 a month from his business. But he said to me, I have shiny object syndrome. And I know it. My wife knows it. I think I could do a lot more if I was focused. And I'm willing to throw some money down and some time to see. And so we ended up, sometimes the sessions would be me talking him out of ideas. He's like, there's a business I could buy for $1 million. I think it's a good deal. Like, really? With all your spare time and free energy and the fact that you've already nailed everything you can in your business and you've penetrated the market, you're number one, there's nothing else you can do. You're like, I might take on a completely new business. He's like, oh, well, when you put it like that, it sounds like a bad thing. Anyway, talked him out of that, had him focus on what mattered. And he ended up cutting his hours in half, moved his whole family to Costa Rica, had his 5th child, and started breaking record sales month after month, 100,000, 110,000, 120,000. He found that he didn't have to work more hours to be more successful. He just had to cut out a lot of the stuff that was not producing. So I love that story because it's about more money, but that's not what I really care about. We'll start there. More money is better than less money. Let's get you a promotion. Let's get you double your revenue. But how about the time you have in life and how you're spending that? He started volunteering and teaching the local kids in Costa Rica ninjutsu. Have more time to spend with his family and his kids. So that's one of my stories that I like. And I also, just to slip in there, another one, I love it when people are able to access their courage. They find their edge, like a tough conversation with the ex-husband, or how do I talk to my kids about COVID? They seem to think they can just do anything. How do I set my boundaries? How do I advocate for myself? That's the stuff I love. And another client, Amy, comes to mind where, we doubled revenue in the first year. It's great. But the true value, I think, is that her life got better. And now she advocates for herself and she speaks up and she's more of a leader in her conversations and with her community than being at effect of what was happening.
Two beautiful stories. Congratulations on helping people. And where can all of our audience find you? Because I know they're going to be like ready to get their workbooks and download the things. So where can they find you?
Yeah. If you want more productivity, I got a great cheat sheet for you guys. You can download it for free. And if you do have your own business, and particularly if you're already up and running, you got a good product and a service, and you just want to do better and faster, and you care about the big picture. It's not just money, but you want to show up more in the world and fully live your life, because that's the sweet spot for me. Then see if you qualify for a free double your revenue audit. And I'll get on the phone with you and we'll create a plan and see if we're a fit for each other. And you can do those things at myfocusgift.com. You can always go to my website, focus.ceo, but you won't get this page where it offers you this free audit where I get on the phone with you and a bunch of other freebies that I won't go into here. You can only get those if you go to this special link I created, myfocusgift.com. And I hope you really enjoy them.
Yay. Okay. Well, I am so excited. I'm going to put all of the details in the description. So make sure that you go and follow David. You go check out all of the workbooks. David, thank you so much for your time. My dogs are about to bark and go crazy. They're excited.
The dog thinks it's time.
Thanks, everybody. And we'll see you guys next week. Bye, guys.